I'm not sure this guy knows what he's talking about. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and I love science fiction. Most of my early understanding of how the world worked, or maybe how the world should work, came from authors like Robert Heinlein or Larry Niven or Orson Scott Card. And there's this one sentiment that came from an author named Jerry Pournelle. It's called Pournelle's Iron Law of Bureaucracy, and it always stuck with me. It goes like this. In any bureaucracy, the people devoted to the benefit of the bureaucracy itself always gain control, and those dedicated to the goals that the bureaucracy is supposed to accomplish have less and less influence and sometimes are eliminated entirely. Of course, part of the reason that this stuck with me when I was younger was because it seemed like this sinister warning about bureaucracy, something that I was supposed to be watching out for. But as I've spent more time inside the bureaucracy, doing, admittedly, the bureaucratic work of the nation, I've started to realize that Pournelle doesn't tell you what you're actually supposed to be watching for. One of the examples that Pournelle gives is the bureaucracy that surrounds public education. On one hand, you've got a hypothetical teacher who is deeply committed to teaching children, that is, achieving the stated goals of the bureaucracy. And on the other hand, you've got an academic administrator who is more concerned with preserving the school district than actually teaching kids. Pournelle's law suggests that the administrator will gain control of the bureaucracy, and that dedicated teacher's voice will be marginalized and maybe even ignored completely. And when you put it that way, it really doesn't seem like Pournelle has much of a point. Lawrence Peter, the guy who wrote the Peter Principle, people tend to get promoted to their lowest level of incompetence. He used this same example of an academic bureaucracy. And he makes it clear that if that dedicated teacher lacks the skills to be an assistant principal or a principal or a superintendent, if they lack those skills, but they still try to get promoted into those jobs, that they're going to end up in a position where they're incompetent. Meanwhile, the guy who's more administrator than teacher, well, of course he's going to get promoted and rise to control the organization. So what? So what does this mean for you? Well, I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but you're probably working inside of a bureaucracy. And you probably entered this bureaucracy at the lower end, where lots and lots of people are doing the thing that the bureaucracy is supposed to be doing. And look, if you stuck around through those early years, it's probably because you found that kind of work satisfying. In fact, you probably saw a lot of your peers leave just because the work wasn't for them. So you did a good job and you started to rise through the ranks, and then you started to realize the depth of the bureaucracy above you. You had to enforce rules, you had to manage people, you had to fill out reports, and then you run into the big question, and that is the mission important enough to you that you will do the hard thing? You know what the hard thing is? You're going to have to pick. You're either going to work on the front lines, making a difference, and give up your chance to shape the organization, or you're going to administer the organization, fight the bureaucratic fights, and let somebody else claim all the glory. See, what Pournelle misses is that we need both the dedicated teacher and the school administrator. We need the old sergeant and the Pentagon budgeteer. They both have their place, and they have both given up something so that they can play their role. Picking your role, well, that's hard, and it's a major decision in your life. But what really matters is that once you pick that role, you play it well. And now, what I want you to do is go watch this video to see what to do if you discover that you picked the wrong role.